last week.
Just want to let the public know this meeting's being recorded and adjourn it.
Yep. Okay, for the members of the public that are here, this meeting's being recorded, and we're going to get this meeting started. We're going to jump right into the budget information that Ms. Penzed forwarded to the Finance Committee members for 12/13. I guess the first thing we should probably do is the easy part, which is probably taking a look at the revenues. And I was looking at the 12/13 budget versus proposed 2011 budget, 2011-12 budget versus the proposed 2012-13 budget. Is there anything, Danielle, why don't you run through these things real quick and just kind of give us the assumptions that you made so we have a better understanding as to how the numbers were derived for these revenue streams.
The first one here is the current real estate tax. I based it on the current millage of 28.9618 mils and the most current assessment we had, which was at October 31st. When we received that, our assessments actually were down over $4 million, assessments. So that's kind of the result there of the assessment decline. Interim taxes, I just kind of based it on the actual 10-11 numbers and the market conditions because we really don't have any.
Yeah, okay. Well, quick question. Have you noted anything about our assessments year over year? How much they've been declining from one year to the next?
Not separately, no.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have any significant appeals in there right now besides what we've already
Right
seen?
now, two that you were made aware of in executive session.
Right. Other than those two.
Not that I know of right now. We do have a lot of residentials. We had a lot of residentials, but...
I think I was thinking more in terms of, in an aggregate sense, you know, over the last 3 years. I mean, I believe our total assessed value in the district's, what, like $1 billion or something like that?
It's like, yeah.
And so I'm just kind of curious, you know, overall, how much have assessments sort of been impacting due to appeals? Has it been going down by, you know, 0.1% a year? Or was it, you know, 5% last year, and we can think it's going to be another 5% this year?
I mean, we could go back and pull the assessments every July and see where they're at.
What the total value was over the last couple of years. I'm just curious because if there's some way, when we start having this conversation, I mean, assessment appeals are still ongoing, and they'll be having those trials this
no,
fall.
they're done.
Unless somebody has appealed theirs.
The assessments, all the residentials that were appealed have been settled, which is where that $4 million comes in. This 1031 is pretty on target.
All right.
Pretty much. Yeah, I mean, there might be a few here and there of the...
your one shots October
are done.
1st,
Is
so
October.
That's why that comes out at the end of October.
All right, well, that's good to know.
Down there on the list is your interim real estate, which I really have no way of knowing. And like I said, I based it on 10-11 actuals and the current market. The public utility tax is kind of, we kind of just budget what we budgeted the prior year because it doesn't really change much. Payment in lieu of, we definitely have one that we get for $133, but then we have the authority, Birdsboro, that has housing authority, and they sometimes reimburse us and sometimes they don't for a couple years, so we have to kind of go back and forth. So I don't know when that revenue will come in. We actually had to go at them for like 2 years this past year to get reimbursement for.
Gotcha. Did they do it last year?
They hang onto our funds?
it goes to them, and
Julie
there's
had
a
to fight with
calculation.
them.
I had a fight with them.
They said that they didn't even get the money from the housing authority, and they did because we got the copy of the check from the housing authority, and then until they decide to do their calculations.
We don't get any interest or any penalties to them, we just get it. So 2 years down the road, they play with our money, and then...
Yeah.
All right, well, we need to take that up with the borough then.
Yeah.
I mean, we actually had Brian look into this last one, and right before they were ready to draft the letter, the check came in.
Maybe we need to just have Brian send him a simple letter saying, look, we expect timely payment, blah, 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 blah,
Occupy
blah,
Borough Hall or something.
from our solicitor.
Occupy
to their solicitor.
Birdsboro.
about REO with the borough over sewer. So
We'll have
they
Occupy
argued for
Birdsboro.
years over that.
Yeah.
Moving on, the per capitas, that's just right now kind of based on history, past history.
So those are both down about $5,000. Is that because that's based on population, right? So we expect that the
And I
numbers
think I
decreased
even-
from last year.
Yeah, I
or from
actually
this year?
took the number of bills that she sent out and did a calculation that way
Okay.
Now,
to try to figure that out.
this is paid by is this what's being paid by the return or what's actually being, the reason I'm asking is Pennsylvania passed a law where an employer needs to hold
That's
the
different.
1% or
No.
the higher rate.
This
That's
is the
different.
$10
Oh,
or the
this is the $10 one?
$15,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the next one, okay.
Earned income tax, that's based on what we've been collecting last year and so forth. So I kind of raised that a little bit based on, like I said, the past 2 years worth.
Has it been going up, or was it like the year before it was 2.6 million, or?
It was 2.59, then it was 2.55, so, you know,
Okay.
I mean, this is super early. I can't
Yeah,
even
yeah.
tell you what's going to happen this year. Transfer taxes, I kept them steady because
Mhm.
I don't know. Then the next ones, the discounts and the penalties, they're all kind of factored into like the larger numbers, so.
Right.
It's really.
Those are a percentage of the other ones.
Yes, exactly. I try to take the percentage of them from the prior year
Mhm.
and just spread it out. Delinquent real estate.
Same way?
That one I based actually on the past year. We were able to, people actually paid their delinquents, so, like I said, I based that on 1011. Delinquent per caps are those same things, the $10. Interest payments, you'll see I decreased that again because we're just not, we have funds invested, but they're
Yeah, they're not making any
just
money.
doing what we can do right now. Let's see what else. The admissions and the physical fees and the.
Oh, just one quick question. Delinquent real estate, you
Mhm.
increased that by 200,000. That was a pretty big number. So, and that was based on 1011 actuals.
Yep,
So 1011 actuals was 1.4 million.
1.408. The prior year was 1.27, so
Do we, I guess my only question would be, and I don't really know if you can even trace this, is, was there a surge in delinquents at one point that you're making up for and maybe you're not? Like maybe last year there wasn't as many delinquents, so you won't get as
our
much this
delinquents
year.
at the end of the year are always about $1.2 million, $1.3 million. Every time we get the
Okay.
June 30th report, it's kind of steady. So
Let's see, what's your collection rate, do you think, like
it's
90?
95.
95?
Mhm.
And it's been
It
fairly
actually has been
consistent,
going
yeah.
up. 95 is like the high point. It was a little bit lower if you look at those. I don't have it with me, but
No, that's fine, I just wonder
Yeah.
what our average was, that's good.
yeah, that's what I use even to do the current real estate when I calculate what we're going to collect.
Should we be more conservative with this number? If it's traditionally been around 1.2 million and assessments are going down?
I use 95, I mean, I used to use 95.
I mean, that's what the number is, I mean, it is
5
what the
years.
number is, I mean,
Yeah.
that's, you know.
Well, I guess the question is,
He's
if
not
it
saying
was
the 95%. He's saying
Oh,
the
the
1.4.
1.4 million, is that number realistic? Was
A lot of these revenue numbers, I'm going to tell you right now, are a little bit aggressive
yeah.
because
But-
from
but-
past committees that I sat.
But on the other end, if you look at your budget numbers, I'll tell you right now, I'm ready to run lines through some of the special ed stuff, so, you know, I don't care what you budgeted, you just don't go up as much as you did.
Wow.
So,
We'll
Some
get
of
to
we'll
that
get
part.
into that, so, you know, you're
Some
being
of that I
aggressive.
can't-
You're being
Yeah.
aggressive, this is the first blush at it,
Absolutely.
so, and we know they may go
I don't
either
even know
direction,
what's
but-
going to happen
Right.
with the state, with healthcare, anything.
Right.
This was my best right
Yeah,
now.
no, we get it. We're not
forward.
challenging you. I guess I'm just,
No,
the first thing I was
hey.
looking to do was get an idea as to what assumptions you guys are using to kind of put this together, because you don't have a crystal ball, but you got to kind of take some guesses, and that's fine. And so I just, on revenues, I'd like to be conservative and underestimate, and on the expenses, I'd like to
I'd be happy
aggressive.
to be at maybe 1.3 on that, but I pushed it to the 1.4.
Let's just leave it and just make note that
Yeah.
that it's going to be between 1.2 and 1.4. leave it where it is, and then we can always come back and look
Especially
at
at
it
this
again.
juncture.
Well, I think also maybe just going back and looking at, 08, 09.
Which is why
Oh,
I
07,
also
08.
sent you this one, because
Yeah.
I
So you
use
have
this
it.
heavily in
Did
some
I
of them.
see that? Well, that was budget
That
to
was the
budget,
to
though.
budget. But well, it's budget to budget, but it's really actuals.
Did I see revenues in there, though?
There is a revenue one, yeah.
Where was that? Is that at the bottom?
I don't know.
I
No,
think
it
it's
would
the
be
third
at the top.
one.
It starts off with salaries and stuff.
No,
so
that's not the right one.
This one?
No,
Oh,
No
you gave us-
salaries.
You gave us
This
three-
one?
You gave us the 5-year,
Okay.
that one.
the last one, the fifth one, number 5 is revenue.
I see it.
So I use those actuals.
So delinquents over the last 5 years were 1.1, 1.2-ish, 1.3, 1.4, and then this year we had 1.2.
Budgeted.
Yeah. So
Because that's
delinquents have been going
up.
up as a percentage, though, of our overall collection, though, too, because our overall real estate taxes were going up at the same time. Be interesting to see what percent one of the
So
other
she's
is. if there's a
budgeting
correlation.
$500,000 more in real estate taxes.
But our real estate taxes have increased by a couple of $1 million
Right.
over the last 5 years, too. So maybe 1.4 isn't unreasonable.
I mean, you can walk to it as a percentage, so.
Okay. All right.
Just taking your admissions and your physical fees and the student activity fee, I kept them status quo right now because
So hold, which one's the
I
activity
need to see the
fee?
activity fee, which one?
that's the one that says physical fees.
It's the same.
$67.40.
Okay, physicals and activities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're both in there.
All right.
So
What was admissions? I'm sorry. Did I miss?
that's on like the ticket sales.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I kept those because we raised ticket prices this year, and with the physical fees going up and the activity fee, I kept them where we budgeted this year because I don't know at this point.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Sorry, I missed that.
No, that's all right. And that one, like the others, will get more refined as we go.
Mm-hmm.
IDEA, I made the same allocation as we're getting for 11-12. The rentals are the $50,000 that we charge the cafeteria and the $12,000 for the transition house. Summer school, that's really kind of just a number that I picked because I don't really know.
But that's all that's passed through, right? Like summer school?
It's self-sufficient. The money we take in here will support
Right.
the salaries
So
and
if
the
it's 40,
program.
we should take in 40.
Right.
Actually, we made money 2 years ago, didn't we?
And summer school? I think you're right.
I thought we made money on summer school last year, or the year before. Not much, I mean, we're like a couple
We don't
$1,000,
make
but
money.
I'll take it.
Tuition from other LEAs, that's, like I have there based on history. We don't really know that until special ed bills, and Julie gets copies of those letters, but we don't have any yet. So
When do they typically bill?
they usually bill the whole year.
Yeah,
Depends on the
Towards-
districts.
because they're
We're-
calculating
We're at the
out-
mercy of the other districts.
Yeah, but we bill, so we would.
Well, no, that's true.
attendance and
But I don't have
whatever.
any of that.
Do
Well,
they
this-
send
on
it,
this-
do they do that quarterly? Do they do it monthly?
They have always done it at the end of the year, and then we just basically book it to, they do it at the end of the year. They'll tell us how much it's going to be, and it is booked back to the proper year.
Yeah.
But I don't really have any way of knowing for
We
next
really
year.
don't. We tried.
And that's a function of placements, though, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're placing students,
Well, that would
No,
be
that's students attending
coming here,
I
Students
see.
being placed
placed
here.
by other districts here.
Right. But we know, I mean, those students are being placed typically on a monthly basis, or are they being placed on a, Dr. Otto, do you know? When special ed from another school
We don't
places
really-
somebody here, does that happen, on a
We don't-
monthly
I don't know
basis
that
or
we
on an
even take-
annual basis, or?
We do. We've had a couple
We've had
last
Twin
year.
Valley,
I wanna say
There's
like-
only one student that I knew about.
I think we had Twin
Pottstown?
Valley and Pottstown, maybe.
It's a de minimis number of kids that we have. It's not, that I know. Because we don't take a lot of those placements.
It is only a couple, I think
Right,
like
but,
3 or.
but still, it's just some of
Yeah,
the
I would
Right,
say
money.
it's
right.
less than 5 kids.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious, like if they're placing,
But I
but
don't know how
as
to-
Tamara points out, it's a wash, right? I mean, they,
Not for the tuition. The
Not
summer
for
school,
tuition.
she said, is a wash.
okay.
the summer school
Special
revenue.
ed, visitors, that's just straight revenue, right?
Yeah, that is. If somebody gets placed
Okay.
here, we
Yeah.
do get, now, we we won't incur any extra costs as a result of it.
No
Sometimes
extra
there's
cost in busing or,
No, they pay, that's all
No,
on the district.
they're supplying the bus.
Yeah, they bring the bus here. My question is though, if we did
It's just like when we have those
$65,000 this year, would
$50,000
those
placements
students
somewhere
not
else.
be here again next year?
That,
It's potential, that's based on the
I
IEP.
can't get that
Yeah.
information.
That's based on the IEP. You
so
never
we
know
need to
how
get
long-
that information from our special education director. She
Yeah,
would
because, I mean,
know
that's potentially, what,
which students
30,000?
Correct.
from out of district, in our district, and how long
That
they're
we're
going to
co-
be here,
that
right?
we would
It's
have
only,
a contract for them.
it's only 20,000, but it's 20,000 less in revenue.
I know.
Right.
Because, I mean,
We would have a
my
contract with
assumption
them,
would
just
be
like
that
we do
if
when we
8 kids were here
place
this
somebody
year,
Yeah.
the odds are that 8 kids, unless one of them graduates or
Those
moves out,
placements usually
would be
take
here
place
next year.
when, though?
Plus, potentially an
They
addition.
can ta-
August or
No,
anytime
they
during
can
the year?
They can take place anytime, depending on when the need of the IEP arises. If someone's going to place out of district, they try to do it at the beginning of a year for continuity, but sometimes something will break down during the school year, and they'll bring them in here anytime.
That's an outlier, though, right? That's not.
No, because there's such a small number, it's really hard to even predict a pattern as to when they might be here.
I guess what I'm driving at is, if typically all the students are placed in August for the most part, right, or at least they try to,
Mm-hmm.
then we should already know what it's going to be for 11, 12, right?
We should, but we tried for part of it to call and get that information when I was trying to put this together, and
That comes from our special ed director. Okay. So we need to have our special ed director in on the loop here so that we can get that information.
Yeah,
And
again,
then
that's
she should
probably-
also be able to tell us where those same students are anticipated to be here the following.
Yeah, because she has to monitor those IEPs, that's what that other
Well,
district
then
pays
can
for.
we ask that you get that for them so that we can
Yep.
finalize that? I mean,
I mean, worst case, we're breaking even.
since,
There may be an
since they
increase.
tried and couldn't, can we get somebody else to try and,
Yep.
thanks,
She showed us all kinds of charts
and
before,
move
so.
on. I mean, if we don't know until we get it.
Okay, thanks, Daniel.
miscellaneous revenue, that's based on our past history, and
That's essentially,
it's kind of a shot in the dark. I mean,
what makes up miscellaneous? You have BCTC refund in here.
well, I just saw that. We should cross that out because we got that, remember when the,
They overcharged
They
us.
right, we were supposed to get it 3 years. This
Right.
would have been our, 12-13 would have been the third year, but they actually paid
Paid
us
it ahead of
all
time.
last year.
Okay, so this is
So
just,
that, right, you can just, I'll take that wording out. Miscellaneous revenue,
it would be, tax certs would fall under there.
I'm trying to think, the kids, the truancy, but the, what are they called?
Yeah,
The-
any kind of fines,
Restitution.
restitution.
Anything that's not in one of those categories that we're not
It's a
expecting.
catch-all.
Right,
Yeah.
but the largest piece, I would say, is probably tax certs.
and that's based on transfer of homes and, for the most part, right?
Settlements.
Settlements,
Settlements,
yeah.
right? Transfer of homes, transfer
Yeah.
of real estate.
Yeah,
Last year was
or
156.
refinancing. Or refinancing.
Yeah.
They would do tax certs for refinances
I
too.
mean, it's
There were
been
some big ones in
135,
there last year that
156.
aren't going to be there this year. I'd have to tell, I have,
Okay.
the-
So
I
that
don't
number
have
may
it
be
here,
lower.
but
Well,
No, it-
BCTC was one. I forget how much that was, but.
I had the details somewhere.
9-10, it was 135, 10-11, actual was 156.
But I'm thinking we actually had E-rate booked in there, and they made us take that out
And
and book it back
yes,
to the
they
expense, which, so prior years are going to be a little offset differently.
Okay.
I mean, this thing jumped big time over the last 5 years. I don't know
Well,
if that's
that
a
is
function of
since
coding.
we started doing tax certs in, when we lost tax collectors,
Uh-huh.
we took the responsibility of those tax
I
certs.
was wondering why you guys did them.
Uh-huh.
Isn't that good at tax?
Yes, that is
Because that
why.
jumped from 28,000 to 74,000 to 135 to 155, and we got 137 in the
Yeah,
budget.
well, that's when we boxed them, right? That's when we did drops.
Brian, so-
Yes.
in 07,
And with
08.
that was the tax collector's no longer doing
Right.
the collection or the tax cert. So we're doing all of them for Union and Amity.
Okay.
Yes.
We do
she-
a lot of
She does
services.
a lot.
That's a lot of certs if you're charging.
It
What are you
is.
charging? 15, 20 bucks?
25.
It's a lot of certs.
No, we really do a
Oh,
lot.
profit center.
They should raise the fee for that.
Yeah, especially because there's nowhere else to go to get it done.
Just saying. I don't know. We do a survey of what other school districts charge.
We did when we
25
initially
is
Yeah.
took over,
25.
and I think we actually did go a little high.
Yeah. Be interesting to see what other school districts are
I
charging.
doubt there's been a change.
See, I think tax per municipalities, it's usually 25.
Yeah.
for
Well,
tax.
and my recollection from doing this when I was a
For
realtor
3
down
years.
in Wayne was, different entities charge different amounts. So the school district may charge one amount, the
Right.
municipality charges another, the county charges the third. And so, at the end of the day, maybe that's something we ought to look at from a revenue standpoint of, if you increase it $5 or $10, that's a de minimis cost to somebody who's refinancing their house, but that could be, judging by this thing, that could be, $50,000 worth of income.
And it does take them some time to do it, so it should be reimbursed. It's not a long time. No.
Doesn't matter how long it
Just press a
takes.
button and it goes.
The tax system is.
So is that something that the board would have to vote on, the cost of that? Or?
Probably.
Yeah, I think.
If we changed it, we would.
I think.
Well, we never set the fee as a board to begin with.
Yeah, I think you did. I
we
think
did.
there was
Yeah, we did.
discussion, and you did.
Resolution or-
It was 07, 08. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on the board though. I don't remember.
But
that.
it would have been done in 06, 07 though, because it was put in place 07, 08.
Yeah, I know there was discussion with the board on that.
Okay. Well, we can talk about it.
Well, she can do a
Well, quite frankly, we ought to be talking about it sooner than later because people are refinancing their houses 24/7.
Especially at the rates where they are.
And
Yeah.
if we change them this year, that just means more revenue this year, as opposed to changing it
And
for
again,
next year.
$5 added to closing cost is.
$8,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It's de minimis cost to the person who's selling or buying a house. But from the volume, that may be something that could help the district. Okay. All right. Sorry, I didn't interrupt. Keep.
Okay, moving on, basic ed, I did put in there a 2% increase over the 11-12 appropriation. That could be way off or not.
I was going to ask you, did you hear it? Have you heard
Have
anything?
not heard a word out of Harrisburg.
Nothing.
Nobody's talking about anything.
It's only November. They got till June.
I know.
They got until
Or I
July.
say or August.
Yeah, nobody's talking.
So that was just kind of,
I'm not worried about Penn State right now. This is late season anyway, so.
They're projecting that the only thing I heard today was there's going to be a potential shortfall again in the state, maybe in the order of $500 million. So I don't know how that translates, but today it could change. It's all preliminary. There's nothing out there.
I'm almost thinking you stay at level funding from last year. Supposed to pop another $145,000 in here.
Again, these are
Yeah.
assumptions. I mean,
Yep, they're assumptions. We're
Yeah,
just.
they can be changed.
I know, but we're making a walk to a gap of $3 million if I remember. We can go back in later on and move things in and out as they get fine tuned. So.
Yeah, I'm just thinking when it comes to December, when we have, as a board, have to sort of vote on a preliminary budget and whether or not we're going to exceed the tax millage and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to present something probably in January to the public. At that time, I think it's a little easier to work from a larger deficit to a smaller one than it is to work from a smaller one to a larger one and then back to, you know what I mean? Just my thoughts on it. I mean, obviously this is our first look at it. We can talk about it a little bit more at the next meeting. But as a board or as a committee, we're going to have to make some sort of recommendation in December to the board as a whole for the voting meeting December 19th, is it?
Well, it's not a vote. It's basically just the board giving me consensus that I can post a preliminary for January 3rd.
Yeah.
You don't vote, you just But I want
Consensus is still
everyone-
people raising their hand and saying, yeah, all
Understood.
right, we're with
But
it.
it's just not an official,
Yeah.
yes,
It's not an official resolution.
but yes. I mean, I can change however the committee,
What do you think, Tamara? Leave it as is, lower it?
The 7862 is what we budgeted this year, what we'll actually get from the,
no, what we're actually, that's what we budgeted, but I think it came in a couple thousand less.
Yeah, I remember.
less.
That 8 million is off of the actual number that we're gonna receive, the 2% off.
Yeah, you got it right alongside it there.
Oh, yeah, 785 million. Off by a couple thousand.
11,000.
Yeah.
10,500.
Oh, please, code if you don't mind.
I don't know that I want to go much more than we have this year, but again, I mean, Walt said we can fine tune it, but I'd
Thank you.
rather add stuff back in later than take stuff out.
Well, again, I mean, this is our first blush
Right.
at it. I mean, next month at the committee of the whole, if we don't get any more concrete information, then at that point there we can determine, okay, let's knock it down to 1% or knock it down to level funding at that point there. I mean, let's not pull things out right at this moment. I mean, we're just going through and getting Danielle's, what she did. I like the column where you identify where you got it, and we can sit and say, okay, let's level fund that because we don't know what's going to happen. We can always go up.
Okay.
And again, I don't think we should be taking anything in or out today.
All right.
She's got definitions of what her assumptions
And
are.
that's fine, but I think
Yeah.
you want to reconsider, I think you want to consider it for when you post your
Right.
preliminary, because, me personally, I agree with the fact that you'd rather have the bigger deficit and come down, because,
And can I just tell you something ironic? That's how I approached the last two budgets with this finance, not this finance, but with the finance committee, and I always was,
No, they didn't want the numbers to be horrific.
they
I
pushed me
understand
to, so this time I came in with these numbers. and
No, no, no,
now-
no, no, no.
next month you can have somebody else
The last
tell you
couple
something.
finance committees, we didn't.
I don't know.
Seriously, I think the way you think, but you can ask Julie when I went into it.
No,
I said,
that's
I'm
so
going to put
true.
this in here, but,
Well, I understand you had a different committee last.
so
I'm
I'm willing to, I mean, seriously.
And again, I don't disagree with either one of you two. I'm just saying, this.
I don't have
she's
a
going
problem
through
with
and
it waiting.
explaining.
It just-
We know we got a note there.
Yeah.
I've got it highlighted in yellow.
Right.
Next month, if you
That's
don't,
fine.
if we're not any warm or fuzzy about it, we back it down to 0, level fund it with the note that, we brought it down and see what happens when something comes
I
along.
mean, we were
You're right.
basically 2 months into the new year as we're trying to
Right.
Oh, yeah.
project for the
No,
following
we,
year.
we understand. I mean, look, over the last 3 years now, we sort of, or at least the last 2 years, we've sort of done this as a group. And I think our job as a finance committee was before, let's get the worst case scenario and basically understand what the assumptions were. So when we present that to the board as a whole, they understand what we're dealing with and where we've made some just guesses, pulling numbers out of thin air, and where we've sort of backed up the assumption saying, look, this is based on the last 5 years, or it's based on a percentage of tax collection, or it's based on number of students, some sort of rational correlation. It's the ones where we're just grabbing numbers out of the air that kind of make me nervous. And
Unfortunately, the state's forcing us to do this
You're right.
we were very
Yeah.
close to having a primary in March. Okay? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's jockeying for
Who's first.
input into who's going to be the presidential candidates. They're seriously looking for a primary in March, which means they just moved our whole thing up till September timeframe type of a deal. And we got lucky, so it's still in May or the end of April. So,
Okay, so tuition and orphans was the next one.
That I just kind of went off of history. Now, I know you're going to look at the history, and last year we got 76,000 in, but the prior years was 14,8, 15, and 14,5.
So what was the variance last year? Like,
And I can't tell you because the state does not give me any backup for that.
they just,
It's just a number that comes in with our basic ed funding and that's identified as tuition and orphans, and it is calculated. I went
I
out
can
and
ask what
tried.
the orphans are, I'm sorry. Are they orphans or are they things you don't know where to put them?
No,
No, they're
no, students that are
they're
Okay.
students.
parents. Yes.
Okay, then they're true orphans.
True
Okay, yeah,
or,
okay.
Yeah.
right, and it's based on the I did go back and look and try to figure out how the reimbursement is calculated to see if I could do it any differently, and it's based off of our 1305 and 1306, some forms
1306,
that are
1305,
signed
1306.
here, and it's out of my realm to.
So this is the tuition CRT on the
Not
other.
that it's that comparable, but I mean, we had a couple of things that, state aid wise, we were like 3 times normal or double normal, that they say, well, you're not gonna ever get it again, it's just a one-time deal, but they don't really explain why. And it's like, well, how, and you don't know until you get it, so, I mean, I can understand.
That's kind of why I went on that one on the more conservative side over what we got the last.
No,
3
I think
years.
that's consistent. I mean, obviously, maybe last year was an outlier. It's clearly an outlier based on the 3 previous years. It was about $15,000 each year, so.
Again, if you have no idea how they calculate it, there's no formula, there's no numbers. I mean,
There's
let's
really
go
not.
low, and if we get more, we'll feel happy about it, but.
Okay.
Special ed I kept flat because over the past, I think, at least 2 years, it's been flat. Transportation, I actually, what a convoluted formula it is, but I actually went back and I tried to tie in, and that I think is pretty close to what we can predict for next year based off of our vehicles from 10-11.
Are the bridge closings, have we heard anything, Walt, from how the bridge closing is going to impact our bus runs?
Yeah, I mean, they have.
I mean, I remember they,
Yeah,
is that going to add?
no.
No. We should be okay. Maybe a little bit more in
Fuel costs.
but
Well,
nothing
that's
that's going to be
And which bridge
significant.
were they going to close? I thought it was just,
They're going to close, my understanding is they're going to close this one here
they just
first.
repaved it.
Yeah, but that was just to get them
Yeah, it was
through.
just to get, because it would.
Because I understand this is
Patchwork.
supposed to be one of the
No pun
the
intended.
worst bridges in the state.
Yeah,
They're gonna
they're
do
going to do
stuff
this one
next to it.
first, and then they're also going to do this one over here
Creek.
in Birdsburg.
Okay.
They're going over the creek.
Okay.
And then there's the one going across 724 down in Union Township.
Right.
That needs to get done. So at Kleins, and then there's a railroad bridge at Kleins also that needs to get done. And they're
and they were
going
going to
to
try
stagger
to,
those two so that,
Well, they were going to try to do the Kleins, the railroad, and the river at the same time, and I don't think that's
we
going to
put
happen.
the
So it's
kibosh on
going to
that one
be
because you couldn't go through there at all then. At least
No.
when you're doing one or the other, you can go down Philadelphia Pike to Squirrel
We
Hollow
wanted
Road
them to do it
and
at the same
I
time.
thought
Yeah, there were some
both-
No,
unhappy
we wanted
campers
them
at
to do
that
it at
meeting.
the same time.
no,
They
I
were
think
gonna
we
do it
objected
separate.
to it.
You couldn't get
Yes,
the,
then the recommendation was to do
get
it
the bridge
together,
together.
but the state came back when we had a meeting a couple weeks ago and said it wasn't really feasible because of access.
Yeah, you're
That-
gonna have it it'd just be a nightmare.
I mean, this bridge will stay open until the point where they're just about ready to tie it in, right?
People up by the waste
They're
road.
building it next to it.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because they did it up on the turnpike too up there in Lehigh Valley, so.
Yeah, I mean, this whole thing's gonna change here. The Turkey Hill's being moved back. There's gonna be a turning lane there. You know, the whole intersection changes, so, that's a major deal. Okay, all right, so in terms of our transportation, we don't anticipate any problems there.
Not really.
Okay,
Rental and sinking fund, that's just our reimbursements from our construction projects. Again, you'll see out to the side there, I calculated I know what our payments are gonna be for 12-13, and it's calculated by using the aid ratio. I have no idea what it'll be for 12-13, so I just use the current year.
Okay.
So that could go up or down.
and the state determines that.
Yes. Health services, I just kind of go off of what we would have gotten the previous year. So,
That's consistent.
yeah.
I mean, the last 5
I mean,
years, it's
I
been that
can't
number.
really tell.
Mhm.
Let's see, property tax relief, I just kept that constant. That
Mhm.
really doesn't, but just put a number in there. Accountability block I left out again. As you know, last year they came in at the end and they gave us that grant. I don't feel comfortable putting it in because I really don't know what they're going to do.
Well, in the accountability block grant, correct me if I'm wrong, it's when we receive the money, we have to spend the money.
Correct.
We don't
Correct.
receive the money, we don't spend the money.
Correct.
That's correct.
So it balances.
It
Yes.
very,
Within
it
the budget.
very, it really does not help you move costs.
No, I mean, it's,
You have to do something with it.
And net zero.
That you weren't intending
Yes.
to do
Yeah,
anyway.
okay.
Right. 'Cause you're not gonna get it. next
Right,
year.
if it's a help, if you get it, it's a help. If you don't,
in terms of services.
it's not going to replace anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Your Social Security and retirement, talking about the two of those reimbursements together.
Mhm.
basically what you do is you take half of your Social Security and retirement costs of your expenses, and that's what we get reimbursed. And you'll see the big jump there for retirement
Mm-hmm. Is
in
that because of the
revenue is
PSERS?
because of PSERS, the rate, and
Jump.
because our expense will go up.
It'll be offset on the other side. so.
Correct.
But that's not, they're not required to reimburse with that, right?
They're not.
So they can change
They
that
can.
at any time.
hmm And they had talked
As
about
they
that
did
last
this year. They did
Right.
it this year. July 6th, they changed it on us by a couple percentage points.
Uh,
Or for last year.
Not
it
the,
was.
Not the retirement. What she's talking about is the state can actually say, we're not reimbursing retirement at all. Not talking about the percentage that we contribute. They don't have to reimburse us.
On the revenue side.
And they did talk about that last year, that they were,
Yeah.
yeah. So, you're right. I mean, I put that in there because it's been, but I don't know. Title I, Title II,
So that's a question mark.
well,
Well, I don't think you're gonna know till it's too late to do anything about it anyway.
Yeah.
Till they start talking about their budget.
No, I'm just putting a question mark
I mean,
on it.
and
It's
we're
$1.5
not the
million
only ones.
though.
Yeah.
Well, I
That's why I
know,
put
but
the
then,
question
you know,
mark on it.
and
Significant
look at what
amount
it
of
is
money.
for them. If you think about it, if
Yeah.
they have every school district,
It's billions of dollars for them.
they might do it, but you won't know
Or
till.
reduce it.
Yeah, you won't know
You
until.
won't know
after-
till-
at
the
least I
budget
would hope
comes.
we would have an idea in February when the governor comes out with his budget.
Preliminary budget, yeah.
Right. Title I, Title II, talk to Anne Marie. It's just, we're just going to keep that constant. That's one of those that will either go up or down. Access, we're back to the 600,000. I'm still waiting for Shelley to get me her ancillary costs. I already have the salaries and benefits that we can do is about 500 and I think 35,000. So I was hoping she could come up with at least 65. I know she has 15 in one of her softwares, and
Is this consistent, Dr. Otto, with the plan that you had proposed to us?
Yes, it's based exactly on that.
Okay.
Based on the,
I was
Yeah.
curious whether this was some other number or she's following basically the
we're just
proposal
trying to
that you
find
guys-
more to put in it in terms of like consumables.
Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, though, we don't want to run out of, we don't want to deplete access funds
We're good.
as it,
We're
well,
good.
yeah, we don't want to have it become something we consistently rely on and then we deplete it and then it's,
Theoretically, at
As a whole.
some point,
It
that's
will.
another fund that could run out if they would ever change the Medicare program, but if it stays intact, based on the projection we gave you, I think we have it going out
like
almost
20 years, I think.
No.
because I think what
5
she's
years.
putting, she's putting
Really?
about
8 to 10 years.
500,000 in a year. So right now we're taking out a little bit more, but we have a significant balance. But if we get to a point where what she puts in and if we take it out, I think we'll be able to continue.
The inherent saving in that is that you just can't really use access randomly. So you've got a lot of controls on it, but as soon as you get something, you should really put it in there, as long as it's not something that's going to kill it.
Then the last item there is the stipends for the self-funded clubs. I went off of the same premise of the same clubs that were self-funded this year will be self-funded next year.
Yeah, that's a small.
It's a small,
Yeah.
but
So that $20,000 is money that's coming in from,
the activities, the activity account, we're actually do a transfer. So they sell yearbooks and
I
they
see.
charge, we'll take that money at the
we
end of the
take the
year.
money
and-
from then and then we use that to pay the stipend.
Correct.
Can we kind of track the yearbooks? I mean, you guys track that at all? I mean, Brad claimed he was going to increase the price of the yearbook to cover the stipend. I want to make sure that he increased
That he
the
did it.
price of the yearbook.
Well, I can tell you he's no longer the advisor.
Okay.
But you would have to ask the advisors to track that and what they're charging, because we're not that information.
Okay, then all I'm saying is that somewhere along the line, make a note that we need to say, how many yearbooks did you sell?
What was the-
And what did you charge for above and beyond what you charged last year? Because the delta's going to be, should have covered the stipend. That was the deal with the elementary and
Right.
the yearbooks were that they were supposed to be self-funded. Again, if nobody's watching,
I'm making a note.
Well, I wonder, you know, it sounds stupid, but I wonder if someday you go to yearbooks on DVD, you know? I mean, maybe your senior year, have paper copies,
I'm
but
not sure they're even going to do them. I have to check that out. They might not even be doing it.
it'd be a
they
lot
are
cheaper
because
to
we,
print
I
DVDs
hope,
for the
well,
kids.
we approved somebody to be the yearbook
Yeah.
person for the elementary school, APC and AIC.
But I know it's not Brad anymore.
I know it is,
Yeah.
right, he said he was too busy. I gave him a hard time with that.
And I know, I can tell you at least at the high school, one of the advisors was in to meet with me last summer, wanting to know what the stipends were and everything, so she could make sure that the price was, now I don't know what she's setting it at, but at least she came and asked me what she needed.
Well, again, I remember Brad
Thank
asking
goodness.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Glad
I
to hear
remember
that.
Brad asking me about that, and I said, the only way you can do is based upon what you sold last year. So if you sold 300 and you had to get, $12,000, there's an extra $4 a yearbook. And he said, well, as long as you guys are happy with that arrangement, so what are you going to do? You can't say you're going to sell 400 of them. You sold 3 last year. The odds are you're going to sell probably in that range again this year.
That's probably going to be, or it's a percentage of
Yeah.
the total number of kids graduating.
Right.
A certain percentage always buy the yearbook. and
Right.
So you look back over the last 5 years and say, well, how many did we sell? What was
It's
the
not
class
rocket science.
size?
I mean, if we're off, $100, it's one thing, but if we're off $1,000, then they didn't do it right.
Then we got to cut the stipend by the
Yeah.
same amount. Then they'll be paying a little bit more attention to making sure they're charging
Call
the
it
right
the Basel
amount.
factor.
That's right. Call it whatever you like. That's my legacy. I'm okay with it.
So that's the revenues.
All right. Thank you, Danielle. I appreciate that.
Now Walter can get his red pen out.
You get the
already
red
got that.
pen
I
out.
used Margaret's yellow pen.
Salaries.
Now, I'm not sure which one you want to use.
Why don't we? Sorry.
I mean, this one sheet, this small sheet you gave here, I mean, it highlights the big
Yeah.
swingers.
That is why I did that one.
Why don't we start with that? Because then we're going to have to drill down into the smaller things, so we might as well just
Okay,
tap
so
it.
just quickly going through this, the first line item, as Walt says, the big swing, one of them is the professional salaries. It's contractual increases for the professional staff. You see the percentage increase is almost 6.7%,
Now,
about $1.1 million.
Does that take into consideration how we changed the steps?
Absolutely.
Which probably gave us some benefit on this.
It's actually right around what it would have been last year had they not
Dig it. Okay.
had concessions.
Okay.
Medical insurance, you'll see out to the right there, that's about a $342,000 increase at the moment. That's based off of the consortium where Blue Cross, our limit is the 9%. I went with that because I have no idea at this point.
Okay, so that could be less.
It could be less, I would hope so, but when am I going to know?
Yeah.
My next meeting actually was this month. They canceled it, so I'm not even sure when my next meeting will be.
In the past, when did we generally nail that number down? Was it in? Just so I'm trying to write in the number, time here. Is it January? Is it March? Is
I
it?
thought it was in spring.
I'm thinking March.
Yeah. I thought
Probably
it was
March, because
spring.
we have to have a meeting to decide if they want to look at self-funding or continue with capital. I'm trying to think of their timeline. I would say March at the latest.
Okay, so 9% is the max, and we
Yes.
plugged in 9%.
Yes.
All right.
Social Security contribution, that's a direct result of salary increases. Retirement, that's a direct result of salary increases, plus
And the PSERS rate.
the PSERS rate going from the 865 to the 1219 right now. That rate is voted on by the PSERS board in December.
Let me
So-
ask you a question. Would they lower the PSERS rate in July?
No, that was the last July. It was in at 8 something, and they came down to 564. This year, we're at 865. Next year's projection is 1219.
But it could come in at 10.2, whatever they vote on in December.
December. So I'll have a number by the end of December for that, but I went with the projection out on their website right now.
So let me just make sure I got this right. So, because we found out in July, right, that they lowered it from 8 to 5.
That was July of 10. That was the
Okay.
10-11 school year.
Okay.
We budgeted the 8%, 822, I think, and they came in at 564.
Right. That was
That
the
was
10-11.
10-11.
Right. So we just found out about that, though, in July of this year.
No, July of last year.
Okay. All right.
Right, because this year we're in
There was
11,
nothing
12.
this year.
Yeah.
The budget was passed by June 30th. It just went, our basic ed just went down a little bit.
Okay, I just got to ask a question because I have a number. If 11-12 was 1.9, and you're saying it's going up 12.2% approximately. The delta between the difference should be what the increase is, isn't it?
Well, you have salaries that go up. It's a percentage of your salary.
Okay,
So you have the salary increases in there plus the increase
okay,
Plus,
on that.
okay. So about 700,000 of that increase is based upon, is because of salaries then? Because 12.2% of 1.9 million is 236,000.
Well, it should be 12.2% of 16 million, or 12.2% of 17 million, correct?
Well, that's just your professional
Okay,
salary.
again,
You
that's,
have
I'm trying to make sure I got that, okay. It's
all
off the
your other
salary
salary.
line, okay.
It's off your salary. And that's not all the salaries, that's just the one professional line.
Right,
item
right,
that's
you
up
got,
that
you
much.
got everybody else's that goes in. Okay,
Correct.
understood.
The next there is your tuition reimbursement. You'll remember that with the agreement passed this year, there was no tuition reimbursement, and that's why that number is
Hi,
high.
it's a jump.
The next line item, that is,
And that $350,000 then for tuition reimbursement is based on prior years sort of
Well,
average, what we've spent on tuition
it's
reimbursement?
hard because the reimbursement rate now is, I believe, $3,500 per person. And I tried to look at, that number changed. It was like $2,500, $3,000. So I tried to just kind of,
Well, if you're
Look
hiring new
and
teachers that are gonna
see.
have to go to school. You
Where
got
would I-
people
where
that are
would I-
deferring this year that are
It's
gonna go next
240.
year.
Yeah, see, yeah, that's our problem. I mean, we benefited by removing the older teachers because they're already tapped at the top end. We bring the younger teachers in, and
They're
now
gonna
they've got to
access.
take classes.
It's a little bit of a trade-off.
Yeah,
They have to take classes, yeah,
yeah.
if they want to increase their salaries.
Well, they're also
Well,
mandated
no,
by
they need it for
state.
certification
Right.
too.
Certification, they have to
State
maintain a
requires
certain
you
amount of
for-
education on an annual basis.
It's not strictly, I mean,
They
a
get some
function
of that
of,
done though at the IUs and.
Well, we talked about that.
some they do
yeah.
that,
Some they
but
can,
they still get reimbursed for
but
that.
usually what
Oh.
happens is,
yes,
Wait a minute, it doesn't cost them anything though to take it at the IU, does it? It does.
It might,
Yes.
it's a lot cheaper,
it's
but they
minimal,
still,
but yes, and they are reimbursed for it.
but for teachers to be
Do
permanently
we mandate them
certified,
to take them at the IUs?
No. And I would guess that some of them will probably taking stuff at colleges towards the
I just
degree or
get a
specific
little
college
sense when you
that-
look at some of the courses
That they
that are
take.
being taken, computer
Well-
with crayons and.
Well, that's what bothers
I know I'm
me.
being
is it-
facetious about it,
No,
but when you
no,
look
you're-
at some of these and I'm saying, how the hell is that germane to your teaching French?
It's not. It's not. And so part of the problem too is, and I've heard other school districts what they do is they say, look, if you're going to take whatever the mandatory classes are, by default you have to. If you can get them for free, you got to take them for free. If you can get them at the IU at the cheapest, then you got to take them at the IU. And then if those avenues are exhausted, then you can take them at a community college. And if they're not at a community college, then you can take them at a at a university level, because you don't want people going to Villanova to take a class that's going to cost you $5,000 that they can take at the local
And most of them are being done
whatever for
cyber
$700
anyway, so I mean.
it's after that they're permanently certified, just a piece of advice from when the next contract is negotiated. Once they're permanently certified, there's really, the only thing they are taking them for is to make more money.
Salary.
To get permanently certified, you're going to be hard pressed to try to have them just take the quote nickel and dime type courses. They need to go to a reputable university to get permanently certified.
Which we understand that, because we've gone through and we're granting tenure, which is your permanent
Exactly.
certification.
But part of it,
Yeah, right,
they go hand in hand.
right. But once you're permanently certified, you're right.
Once they get,
You're only
you go
doing it
from
to
an
make more
instructional
money.
1 certificate in the state of Pennsylvania to an instructional 2. Once you have that instructional 2, unless you're going for an administrative cert or some other kind of like guidance certification or whatever, there's no need to step into a college classroom again.
Well, I got it, but I guess from my perspective is you can go anywhere to get your degree, right? But but why does the taxpayer have to fund it?
Well, no, they've already got their degree.
No,
When you're
I'm
talking
saying
about permanent
certification. That's what I'm saying is,
Because
do you
state's
have to go
mandated, you have to
to?
get, well, it's got to be reputable. I mean, you
Okay,
can't-
well, Montgomery County Community College is reputable, right?
But it may not offer the courses they need.
It may not offer the courses they need.
I guess my point was, if
what-
you can get them somewhere else cheaper, we should make sure that that's where they go, as opposed to.
What you would do, and again, I'm not a contract lawyer, but what I've seen certain contracts do is we will reimburse you at the Kutztown University rate. If you exceed that, then that comes out of your pocket. So
And
you can
quite frankly, that's
control-
where the $3,500 came from. because they pulled down Kutztown University's rate.
Right.
And $3,500 paid for the full course, and that's the
Right.
reason they went with it. But as you just stated, and I think that brings a lot of merit to it, once you're permanently certified, we're paying for them to take educational courses to increase their pay.
That's
There might
fundamental.
be something wrong with that.
You think? Yeah.
Does he?
So by the way,
your
here's
mom's gonna pay you
$3,500
to go to
back
school
to
so you
take the
get
course,
more
and we're
money?
gonna pay you $4 grand more next year.
That's contractual. I mean, that all falls
That's a
into our
negotiation.
negotiations, but I mean,
Keep going to that one too.
I don't want to start the negotiation more in public, but that's, keep that one in the back of your.
You're safe so far.
Moving on.
oh, yeah.
The 329 is where the placements are, both regular ed and special ed. That increase there is truly the special ed placement increase.
I'd like to see her line that out because she lined it out last year and was able to start slashing and cutting it severely. To go up $355,000, almost $356,000 over proposed budget this year, which we still think is fat. It is, I mean, I want that lined out.
We've
Child
already
A,
started,
B,
we've
C,
already
D.
started working on it.
And that's money we pay to other, like to the other schools.
Right.
So you can easily trace that because you know what you're spending.
Mhm.
You get
We'll
bills.
show you, we're
Well-
It's
already
tied to
working
a
on that.
specific
Do
student.
you
And you
believe
should
that
be
number?
getting bills at some point.
No, not yet.
Okay.
We're working on it.
I mean, because I'm going to be honest, anything she puts in front of us is going to be dissected because of the mistakes
No,
she
that's
made
fair.
last year.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
As well as
it
the
goes
next
without
line
saying.
item, which is $167,000 over prior. Between the
Right.
two of them, she's almost $500,000 just in those two line items.
We've already met.
Okay.
We're not completed with our work at this point.
Yeah, just so long as she's done by the next finance committee meeting.
Mrs. Pence and I have had a sit down with her, and
Okay.
we're on it.
Great.
Because otherwise, we'll cut it out before the.
Well, I mean, that's just it. I mean, before this comes before the entire board.
No, I've had a lot of, no,
we've
trust
vetted
me, I've
that.
had a lot of questions.
I mean,
and
I don't
we're-
want to sit
we're
with.
researching it.
I don't want to sit with the circus we had last year with, 9 board members sitting here and everybody coming up and all that stuff. I'd like to see, as we've done in the past, the finance committee try to pare this down and then sit as a board with, what we got left as a realistic number. And I think we talked about that because, quite frankly, I don't have the time, nor do any of the other board members, to sit 5 or 6 meetings, and then at the last meeting, Mr. Ross and I say, let's go, let's just pull this one out, and this one out, and this one out, where that could have been done in this committee here and handed back.
Yeah, well, I think the issue was last year with this particular line item. I mean, obviously, we needed to make sure that we're getting we didn't see those numbers until April or May
Right,
of the actual students.
right.
And that's what we need to see. We need to see that probably by December. If she's,
There's already a list, we just didn't bring it tonight, we didn't think it was appropriate at this point.
no, probably not, but I mean,
There's
think
a
it's-
list.
I think it's appropriate for her to go through it on her own and.
She's aware of that.
And get that down. I mean, this is $500,000. Okay. Well, no sense beating that one to death. We'll stay on that one for the next time. Okay, and then the next one is contracted carriers.
Right, that's our transportation, and I used a 3.5% increase. Plus, I did add an additional bus with a wheelchair capacity just in case we would have a student move in, and increase in diesel fuel.
Are we locked in the diesel fuel for next year yet, or have we gone out?
Not yet. I just had to confirm the quantities for them to go out to bid for it.
So you will be able to fine tune that number a little bit possibly?
We will by the time I know, like I did last year, I actually had to come back and tell you I needed to add more because
Right.
of the cost, but we should be, yes. And then again, you have our tuition to charter schools. That's just based on the current number of students that we have, regular ed and special ed, and based on the 11-12 rates that we are paying. So that line item's almost up 100,000.
Those rate is a percentage that's multiplied.
It's
What's
an
the
actual
formula?
It's a
rate.
formula.
I have to do a PDE report, and it goes to the state, and it tells you how much the tuition is for
That's
special ed
it's a
students
subsidy
and,
pool, right?
Yeah.
regular ed
Yeah.
students.
It's a subsidy pool, they just take it right from our subsidy. Or we have to
No.
actually physically pay it.
We
We pay it, but
Pay
what
it.
I'm saying is, how do you, they're asking how that is calculated.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was wondering what the formula was.
They pull out certain special ed expenses and they take it times certain formulas. I have the sheet,
Yeah.
you know, and then it comes up with this is how much for a regular ed and this is how much for a special ed.
So is this number pretty solid then? Because is it based on
It's based on the
last
current.
year's rates, or is it
No.
based on our current
Current.
budget?
Current tuition.
It's based on the current tuition for 11-12 that I had to submit to PDE in August, and the current students right now in charter schools.
Right, okay.
Which
But
could
that will-
change.
Oh, so that will change then, this number changes then as we go
You can have
along?
kids going into charter school
Yeah, right,
at
at any
any
time.
point.
And again, that's using 11-12 rates. I won't know what rate it's going to be
Cyber school?
until August
Yes,
of,
it's
It's
we
cyber and
almost
charter.
It's all in the same boat.
Okay.
Okay.
so it's the best
What
guess.
is that, is there an average of what that costs per student? Like,
I have the cost, not off the top of my head. I want to say it's like
Sure.
8,000 something for a regular ed and I want to say like 14,000 for a special ed. I'd have to get you the exact amount. That's this
Okay.
year's rate.
so it's not like we just lose a portion of the state funding. We actually have to pay the full, like a full
We don't
amount.
lose any state funding. We get a bill from Agora.
Right, but say like we get, I don't know, if there's another, but say we get $3,000 per kid per, from the state.
Oh, okay.
It's not like we just lose that, it's not like we just take that 3,000 and give it to the charter school. We have to make up our portion too, right? And I guess, I don't know if I'm making any sense, but it's not, there's actual local tax dollars that go towards that charter school. It's not like it's just the state's portion of the
Oh,
funding.
right.
Okay,
Right.
that's my question.
'Cause
It's all wrapped up in our budget.
The
And I
state-
understand that, but for my own knowledge, like I was told by a state rep that this stuff's no big deal because we just lose the state portion of the money, and we should actually be happy because we get to keep the local portion. And
That's-
we have to educate the kid. And I was
That's
like, I don't
probably,
think so.
I'll be politically correct, an inaccurate statement.
Yes.
Okay, well that's why I'm asking because I didn't really know how it was funded.
What weird, if this tuition waiver that's going in place right
The
now,
vouchers?
we're in a whole world of hurt then, right?
I don't
I
think
saw
so.
the
No,
same thing
we
with the
don't have
vouchers.
anybody that,
Going into
I
It's
really,
hard to-
I can just tell you, I don't understand the whole voucher thing personally.
it's
I-
designed, there are 140 schools that they've identified that would be, quote,
Eligible.
eligible as listed as failing schools, and then
It would
they
have to be
would,
in a neighboring district, right? So we'd have to have a failing school in a neighboring, physically bordering our district's boundaries.
no, if we had one, they could get a voucher for us, and they could take their money and walk it somewhere else.
No, but I'm saying if Twin
Oh,
Valley
no,
had a
that's
school that was,
Oh, yeah, then we could accept them,
then we
sure.
could, okay.
And
okay.
then we would get the revenue for
Right.
that.
Right,
Right.
right. But the 140 or so failing schools, I think 95% of them are in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh.
But my point is, it's got to be a neighboring district, so we can't have an exodus out of Philadelphia into Boone.
I wouldn't expect it to be.
But
You
In
could.
Reading?
but I thought somewhere it had to be a neighboring
I
district.
don't know that that's.
I don't know that I've seen that. I think as it becomes more of a reality, we'll probably get guidance on that.
Because it gets to a point where
It's
it's
a-
diminishing returns. So, I mean, we
Right.
may get money, but if we have to start hiring staff, and
Well,
then
you
we'll
don't,
have problems.
you don't have to, I don't know if there was debate, but we're talking about the JOC, as to whether or not, I don't know if you have to take them if you don't have room for staff.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you don't, it's not like you should have to build a school.
It's not even in
Take-
regulation form yet, so we can't even answer
Right.
those questions. I imagine somebody has a hidden secret document that has the regulations spelled out, should it go through, but we haven't seen it yet. So, and they haven't really been, how should I say, there hasn't been a lot of transparency yet as to what really is going to happen. It's
Yeah.
all
It's a lot
kind
of
of
conjecture.
theoretical.
Okay.
Those are the big hitters.
Yeah. All right. So we'll quickly just move into some of the smaller stuff, I guess. I'm looking at the budget to budget, no salaries,
Okay,
since that's sort of something that we can't really control.
right.
Starting at the top at the 1100, 500, other services, that jumped $80,000. How
That's
was,
part of your tuition for your charter schools are there.
that's charter schools. Okay.
A portion of it, yeah.
And property is
Property is equipment.
equipment.
which would have been submitted by buildings.
Okay, so that's in facilities, okay. And
Well, not Kenny.
then, not Kenny.
It's like your principals, if they
Mhm.
needed projectors, or if they are,
So is this technology then?
not this line item, no. This is actually your buildings buying,
Desks?
gosh. No, they wouldn't buy desks. I'm
No,
trying to
not
think what
everything.
Paper clips?
no, that's
No,
supplies.
That's supplies.
I'm trying to think of some of the equipment.
I'm just kind of curious because, if you're looking at the actuals where it was hundreds of thousands of dollars and then it dropped off in 10, 11 to 13, and then this year it's 17, now we're going up to 30. I understand these guys are forwarding their budgets to you so you can put this together. So
No, they actually aren't this year. They entered everything themselves, so I have not seen any of their budgets.
So we don't know why that went up 12.
Well, I mean, I could tell you
You
what
wouldn't know until you
building.
got into the 7. Oh, you can tell me what building. And you could also tell me, all right. And then they should also have that coded properly so we know exactly where it's going to, correct? In terms of the overall code, is that going into, I don't know, first grade, or is it going into third grade? I mean, don't they, it gets down into subcodes too, correct?
If that's how they
If that's how
entered
they
it.
entered it.
Be able to tell that building.
That's a place to start.
We'd have to do building runs.
This was just a summary.
Mhm. Special ed, that's all Shelley,
Well, yeah,
for the most part, right? Supplies,
that's showing.
yeah, and the purchase of professional services
That's
is
the,
the service.
yep.
Uh, Other instruction, 1,400, 500.
That's your summer school, your homebounds. That's kind of Anne Marie.
Okay. Tamara and Walt, feel free to jump in if you see something you want to. I was just kind of scrolling down the list at things that kind of popped out at me. Where else was there? Okay, so under instructional services, now this is the 2200 300s and the 2200 500s.
And the other services have jumped. It's not a lot money-wise, it's a lot percentage-wise, but
Well, and then I'm looking at it vis-a-vis, prior years too.
And see, a lot of this too could be the buildings reallocating, like if they had something charged.
Somewhere else.
Now they're charging it where it should be, so you have decreases in it.
Yeah, I see that. Transportation, that was, we already talked about that one. Community services, supplies,
That's Anne Marie.
that's Anne Marie.
really overall, it's only a 1% increase.
Without your salaries and benefits.
Okay. Walt, do you have any questions?
No, I mean, I went through and outlined, most of what we had was, it's on that other sheet, special ed sticks out like a sore thumb. We'll have to jump into some of this other stuff, though.
Tomorrow?
No, I mean, really, like you said, overall, I mean, it's pretty much the same. It'll just be, if we had the deficit with the issues like we had last year, I mean, it'd be interesting we talked about it last year, but maybe you have to start with the bare bones again and build up instead of starting here and tearing down. I don't know. I know we talked about it, but
I don't know, I don't know where we're going to pare much more.
Right.
We got a $3 million gap and we're now in the cutting program. That's the bottom line.
well, that's why I think you might almost have to start at
It's a
at
zero
bare
increase
bones,
budget.
and then you start at zero and work your way up.
You had zero increase budget and then, coming because if we don't, then I mean, we know there's gonna be a fuel issue, okay, so then you got that, but, you know, when you start seeing line items jumping by $300,000 and, you know, it kills you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. We'll call the meeting to, any questions from the public?
I have two questions. I know earlier today, I've heard this a few times now, the transition house. What is the transition house?
We bought, go ahead.
The property at the top of the hill by the high school, we were able to enter into an agreement with the Berks County Intermediate Unit to rent that to them, to provide special education programming to kids throughout the county, including our own. So it's a revenue source for the district.
And then,
That's excuse me, the transition house is the name the IU gives it.
okay.
It's transitioning kids into the world of work and into life.
All right. Then the other question I had, I've been reading online about some things, and zero-based budgeting was one thing I've read about. Can you just detail how the budgeting process, how it works?
Zero-based budgeting or what we do?
What we do here.
Well, I mean, to give you a sense of what happens here is that our business manager, it's almost the individual budgets feed up to our administrative level. So the different building principals, our special education director, our IT director, our facilities director, they create their budgets and they put them together and it comes up to an administrative level where it's then assembled. Certain things are out of their control, salaries, benefits, debt service, those sort of things, and that takes up a good 80% of our budget, and then the other 20% is things that we can deal with. Transportation's another piece of our, I mean, that's contractual. It's based on the number of buses, fuel costs, things of that nature. So
Now, when crafting the budgets at the, I don't know, if it's done, the lowest level is at the school level, is it department level?
I guess it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that done based on, do they look at previous year's budgets and do they take out what they, like how does it work from that point? Do they look at it from a blank page and do they put down what they need or?
They're supposed to.
It's a combination of looking at what was budgeted in previous years versus at the end of each year, we get a final report on the budget to see what was actually spent. Say you needed $10,000 in, let's say, for fuel, and you found out that over 3 years with your actuals, you look at that and you say, well, hey, no, wait a minute, we only spent $4,000 a year, so maybe when we budget for that the following year, we can say, well, we really don't think we need $10,000. We'll try to pare that down. Or on the other side of it, we've been budgeting $10,000 for something, and then we find out we spent 25 and 30 and 35. Legitimately, we say, you know what, maybe we better put more money into those accounts.
Is it more often that the expenses go up than they come down?
It's a mix. It really depends.
we've had certain departments where the costs have gone down consistently from the index. So.
Special ed is probably, as Mr. Shaheen was saying, one of the more volatile because you can't predict where the students with IEPs may need placements from year to year. You try to get your best handle on that. So that's one area where you'll see a lot of. If you look at a 10-year history, you'll tend to see the graph go like that.
Okay, thank you for answering those.
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions from the public? All right, seeing none, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Are we having before the reorg meeting?